Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Discriminating Gamer. You know, I recently went golfing, and I made sure to take an extra pair of socks, in case I got a hole in one. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at my top 10 GMT games of all time. Hello, everybody. We'll get back to the review in just a second. I just want to take a moment to ask you to go ahead and check out and subscribe to my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about military history and books on history and fun things like that. Please check that out. Please subscribe. And now, back to the review. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I just, a few years ago I did a top 5 GMT games list, and I thought I'd do a top 10 because GMT is one of my favorite companies, and they're always coming out with stuff I like, and so I've got some older goodies and some games that just came out this last year, and so I'm eager to share these with you. My top 10 games. I'm just going to jump right into it. So my number 10, this is a game that I really enjoyed. Played it a few times. I'm sad to say it's one I ended up giving away because I just never got it to the table. But this is Triumphant Tragedy. And Triumphant Tragedy is a great World War II game. It's a great World War II game for a lot of reasons. First of all, it starts in 1936, so you've actually got some diplomatic stuff going on, and there's like these diplomatic battles that you have in the game, playing various cards to kind of win alignment of various nations, and that's a really fun thing. But then, of course, you get into the battle, and it's not so much nations as it is kind of the Axis, the Russians, the communists, and then kind of the West, the democracies. And the way it plays out can be a historical. First game I played, the communists and the West went to war, and Germany kind of remained neutral for a while before it got involved. And so you can kind of do things like that, but you're keeping track of your industry and your materials and all sorts of things in order to keep your war machine going. Very fun block war game, but it has a lot of other really, really cool and interesting mechanics and ideas there. Now they're doing the Consequence, what is it? I can't remember. It's the Pacific War one is coming out, and I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully I'll be able to play that and get that to the table before too long. But that is my number 10, Triumphant Tragedy, GMT Games, number 10. My number 9 is another game that I really enjoy, but again, I could never get it to the table because it had such a high learning curve. So I ended up giving this one away too, and this is one I think I gave it away when I moved to Texas, and I kind of think I shouldn't have done that, but I did it. It's over. It's done. This is Churchill. Churchill is a great game. I think this is a Mark Herman design, and Churchill is a really cool balancing act. Essentially, it is a game about the the many conferences that took place over World War II by the three powers, right? You've got the Americans, Franklin Roosevelt, later Truman. You've got Churchill for the British, and you've got Stalin for the Russians. And you've got like a three-way track, and you've got the different issues, and you're trying to pull the issues toward you so you can have them resolve on your terms. But you're playing cards. It's almost a Twilight Struggle kind of a thing. And you can play scenarios, or you can play the whole game. I think I just played some of the scenarios. It would have been a long game to do the whole thing. But it was really cool, and what was cool about it too is kind of how you scored. You wanted to be ahead, but you didn't want to be too far ahead because they're your allies, so you kind of have to watch that. Very, very, very cool, very interesting game, and still I don't know that I played a game exactly like it. It's really kind of unique in a lot of ways. But that is Churchill from GMT, my number 9. My number 8 is a game that just came out last year. It's a game that I really like because it's one of the more innovative games I've played. It's a war game, but I've never played a war game like this before. This is Atlantic Chase. Atlantic Chase is a game that is about the World War II at sea in the Atlantic, but in the early days of the war, so it's about kind of the surface fleets. Normally when we play games about the Atlantic War in World War II, it's usually about the U-boats versus the surface British Navy. And this one is about the surface navies clashing. But what makes this game, and that alone is quite a unique perspective on the conflict, but what makes this game innovative is the fact that you have your units, your naval units, you do have markers you put in task forces, but the task forces themselves are represented by trajectories. These are segments of lines of little wooden blocks that represent roughly the course of that ship. And then you, as the opponents, you're trying to intersect that line, and you're trying to search the length of that line in order to locate that fleet and bring it to battle. It's a very interesting system. It's a very unique system, very innovative, and I've not seen anything like that. It's a game that, I played it a lot of games solo. I think I played it once or twice with other people, but it's very interesting. It's very compelling in the way it uses this new kind of system, and I really think it'd be cool if we could see something like this in the Pacific. I think that would add a whole new dimension to the game, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're working on that right now. But this is Atlantic Chase from GMT, my number 8. My number 7 is a game that I was... I made my World War II list a couple years ago, my favorite games of World War II, and people said, you got to play this game, you got to play this game. So I played this game, I reviewed it, and then I put it on, when I just recently redid my World War II list, my favorite games of World War II, I put it on there. It was that good. This is Combat Commander Europe. Combat Commander Europe is this brilliant hex encounter war game. But what makes this game so much fun is the card play. You've got these different cards, and you've got kind of the orders you give, the general actions to your troops, but then you also have other actions that you can take. The cards have events on them that can play out, and then you also, the cards themselves are your die roll. They have 2 printed die, so when you have to normally roll die, you just draw a card and it says what the die result are. But then also it can trigger snipers that can take shots on the board. It triggers events that are on other cards you draw that would tell you exactly what the event is. So there's a lot of spice and sugar in this game. It's like a conventional hex and counter game, but then there's all these extras and all these fun things, and there's chance here, but still, you're in control. I really, really like this game quite a bit. It is a great hex and counter war game with a little something extra. That is Combat Commander Europe. That is from GMT, my number 7. My number 6 is a game that came out, again, last year, I believe, and this kind of displaces another game that I had on my earlier list of GMT games. I was a big fan of Thunder Rally, but I got rid of Thunder Rally, gave it to Zach, and now I'm talking about Apocalypse Road. Apocalypse Road is a racing game, but more than a racing game, you're shooting at each other. It's like post-apocalyptic racing, and your cars have guns on them, and it's just a great way to play a racing game. You've got a number of cars. You're playing cards that move your cars in certain ways, but how your car moves is going to move other cars as well. So you're always paying attention, because you never know if somebody else does something that's going to affect you and what you're doing, and then you can shoot at each other. So it's a lot of fun. It's kind of goofy, the theme, but man alive, I really liked it. I really was a big fan of Thunder Rally, but Apocalypse Road killed it for me because it's just got more to it. It's got more flavor, more meat to it, and I really like the cars shooting at each other. So it's a lot of fun. This is Apocalypse Road. That is my number 6 from GMT. My number 5 is, in fact, I think most of my top 5 here were in my top 5. At least one of them wasn't, but most of the top 5 were in my top 5 earlier, but I've kind of rearranged some of the order. My number 5, I'm going to go with Talon. Talon is a great tactical space game, and it feels like a naval game. You've got spaceships battling each other, but it just as easily could have been, like an actual naval game. But you've got the tiles. You can write on the tiles with a dry erase marker what your power curve is, and you go off an impulse system. And I've heard people talk about Star Trek Battles, which I never played, but I guess it's a similar system to that, whereas when you're at one section of the impulse, you're looking at everybody that's got that number on their thing, they can go ahead and move, take your shots, do what you need to do. It's so much fun. It's such a great tactical game. I really enjoy it quite a bit. There's a lot of different kinds of ships, and of course they've got shields, and you're ticking off your shields as you're losing your shields, and you're taking off your weapons and keeping track of your weapons, and you want to make sure who has the initiative, right? You're always looking at who has the initiative as well. Great game, phenomenal game. I really love it. I played the expansion to it too. That brings some more meat and spice and sugar to the game. Really loved it. Really loved Talon. I think it's a great space combat game. Reminds me a lot of Star Wars Armada, but a lot less hassle with cleanup and takedown. But yeah, I kind of get that same feel from them. That is Talon. That is my number 5 from GMT. My number 4 is the big brother of Talon. This is one of the great space games. This is Space Empires 4X. Space Empires 4X is where Talon is kind of the smaller tactical game. This is the larger strategic and operational version of that. Essentially, it's kind of a 4X game. Well, it is a 4X game. It's in the name. It says Space 4X. It's a 4X game in that you're exploring, you are attempting to you're fighting your enemies, but you're also attempting to gain resources in space. You're attempting to found new colonies, to bring back minerals and what have you, build up an economy. There's all sorts of different things you're doing in this game. And so in that sense, it's almost like kind of a civilization building game, but at its heart, its basic DNA is still a war game. And you're fighting these battles against your enemy, and there's cool things where you can like screen your ships. If you've got more ships you don't want to have in battle, you can screen them behind other ships. And there's just a lot of really cool things you can do like that in this game. I played this game at different player counts. I think I played it. It plays 1 to 4, and I think I played it at all player counts at this point. I played, yeah. And no, pardon me. I don't think I played it solo yet. I can't remember if I played it solo. I know I played it at 2, 3, and 4, and I can't remember if I played it solo yet. I think I did one time, but I can't remember. Maybe I'll have to do that soon. But I like it at every player count. But my favorite player count is 2-player. I don't know. Feel like it lends itself better to a 2-player game. But I really enjoy it. I enjoy the exploration and the exploitation and the combat. And it's a great game. The last time I played this was Zach. We played it last year. I actually gave him this for like his birthday or something, and he blew him away. He loved it. Thought it was phenomenal, and we want to play it again. I actually had a buddy of mine make up little holders to hold your ships, because you got to put a marker on top of them, which is generic, because you don't want them to know how many ships you got in your fleet and what your fleet consists of. And sometimes those things would always fall off, so I made these little. I have a friend 3D print these little things to hold them in place. Really excited. Really love that game. Fantastic. This is Space Empires 4X from GMT. That is my number 4. My number 3 is from a family of games, and I'm a big fan of all this family, but this is the best one. This is the one I chose to represent that family because I think it is the best, and this is Command and Colors Napoleonics. I love Commands and Colors games. Commands and Color games are awesome. You've got the board divided into the center and the right and left flanks, and then you get cards that say you can move units on your right flank, in the center, and your left flank, and you're playing these units to attack other units. But there's a lot of spice and sugar in the cards too. There's a lot of fun things that pop up here. And like I say, this is one of many different Commands and Colors games, but this one is my favorite. I like the Napoleonic theme a lot. I like some of the things you can do. Your infantry can form squares. It's just a fun system, and I always get people tell me, well, you got to play and review the expansions. You got to play and review the expansions. And I'd like to, and maybe I will someday, but I've been saying that forever. I've never played any of the expansions. I've only played the base game. But it's a fun game. I really like Commands and Colors Napoleonics. My favorite of the Commands and Colors systems, and just a great, great game in its own right. If you haven't played it, just pull the plug because you're taking up oxygen. It's that good. I mean, you really need to get CNC Napoleonics. It's brilliant. So that's Commands and Colors Napoleonics from GMT Games, my number 3. Now my number 2, this is another game that just came out last year, and I thought it looked really interesting, and I played it, and that was all she wrote. Really liked this game a lot. This, kind of like Churchill, it's a game about conferences. It's a conference, right? It's a war game in the sense that thematically it takes place around a war, but it's so much different and nuanced here. This is Versailles 1919. Again, this is Mark Kerman and Jeff Engelstein, I think, did this one. And this game is so much fun. And I saw it and I was thinking, I'm probably going to enjoy this game, and I had no idea I would enjoy it as much as I did. But what you're doing is you're looking at different issues, and you're having issues coming down and sliding down, and then you're kind of trying to resolve the issues, and you're putting cubes on the issues to try to gain it. And then you can, so you're fighting over these issues. When you get the issues, they're worth victory points, and so it's cool. I've got these victory points, but then you got to watch the kind of the world track and the what's going on in the world, because various events are going to come out that are going to make certain sections of the world, areas in the world, Europe, Asia, Africa, are going to make places in the world be more dangerous and unstable. And when that happens, if they get far enough into instability, you have to deploy military units to go after them. Your people don't like that. But critically, any of your issues that you've settled for that region, they're back on the table. People can try to steal them. Thematically and mechanically, it just meshes and it works phenomenally. Just a brilliant game, and it's one of those games too. There's a lot of games that have historical themes that do an okay job representing the theme. I think this is one of those games that just I think immerses you in the theme, and you really get a sense of you really feel like you're there at Versailles, and you're engaging in these political and diplomatic battles, and really like it. I really, really, really like this game. If you haven't played it, you need to check it out because it is just fun. It's so much fun. I love, love, love Versailles 1919. That is my number 2 from GMT Games. So finally, my number 1 is the same as my number 1 the last time I did this list, because it's just a phenomenal game, right? This is just a phenomenal game. Arguably one of the greats. In fact, it was number 1 on Board Game Geek for like a decade or something like that. Of course, I'm talking about Twilight Struggle. Jason Matthews and Ananda Gupta created something really phenomenal, really, 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 really special with this game. And not just this game. Again, this is another game that's, I think, kind of representative of families of games. 1989, 1960. They have very kind of similar mechanics here. And Twilight Struggle is still the best. It's got, the thing about it is, if you're learning the game, you may want to learn this game with somebody else who doesn't know it as well as you. Because if somebody knows the game and they know the cards and they know the decks, you can get screwed really easy here. If you don't know what's coming, if you're playing against an experienced player, it can be really tough to win. But having said that, it's such a fun game because I've said this, whenever I talk about this game, I always make this point because it's so important. I've never before or since played a game that forces you to make the best of bad decisions. You get a hand of cards and they're not good and you've got to play them. But how do you play them? And when do you play them? These are key questions. It's a Cold War game. You're looking at a map of the world. You're either the Soviet Union or the United States. And you're playing cards that benefit your side. You can either play these cards for their events or for their operational point values. When you play them for the operational point values, you get to place influence and get stronger around the board. But if you play it for influence but the card belongs to your enemy, it's got their symbol on it, then the event still triggers and it helps them. So it's like, I got to play this card. You literally have to play the cards. But you're going to help them. And you do have some mitigation. There's a space race where you can kind of essentially throw away a card. So that does come up. But the game is really about, as I say, managing your hand and timing. Timing is critical. When you're playing the scoring cards is critical. Zach and I love this game. I think this is Zach's favorite game of all time, and I don't blame him. This is up there for me as well. Fantastic game, Twilight Struggle. If you have not, let me just take a minute here and be your Uncle Cody for a second. If you're a gamer and you have not yet played Twilight Struggle, first of all, I envy you. I envy you that you get to play this game and experience it for the first time. But just as a friend, play this game. If you can't afford it, find a game store that has it. Play this game. Take the time. There's a bit of a learning curve. Take the time to learn it and play it. You will get a kick out of it. I love this game so much. Twilight Struggle. That is my number 1 game from GMT Games. Number 1. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, thank you for listening to me go on and on about my favorite games from a great game company. And I love GMT. GMT was actually one of the very first companies too that sent me a review copy, and that was Space Empires 4X, and that was 2012, 2013. And I thought, wow, it was nice of them. What a neat company. And they've never disappointed me. I mean, I played some of their games I wasn't wild about, but I mean, just as a company, I think they're great. They're really friendly to work with, and I think they do a good job. Occasionally, maybe more than occasionally, they release a game that needs some errata and other stuff. I know that happens, but still, I think they're a solid company. They do great. They produce just phenomenal games. They get some of the top designers to design for them. So that's my spiel. So if you have favorite GMT games that are not on the list, go ahead and put them in the comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your top 10 would be, or some of your favorite games from GMT at any rate. I'm always eager to hear what other people's ideas and experiences are about these various lists that I do. And sometimes I find great ideas, like Combat Commander Europe. I got that, like I say, off of the comments from another video. So please go ahead, share that with me. I would love, 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 love to hear what you have to say. And please, like I say, subscribe to this channel if you've not already done that. I'd ask you to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. I'd also ask you to please check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD. In that channel, we actually talk about military history and books on military history, and I make some kind of longer videos on certain topics on World War II and other things. So please, please, please check out that video, check out that channel, and subscribe to that. I would really appreciate it. I'd also ask you to give a thumb. I'll probably post this in the forums on Board Game Geek. Please give this a thumb on Board Game Geek as well. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, I am really, really, really happy to bring this content to you, and I hope to be able to do it for a long time to come. But let me ask you a very important question. Can you name 3 cars that start with P? No, I'm sorry, sir. Those cars start with gas.
Please somebody help me on my feet again. And I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band. God knows that I love to fight, but I don't ever win. It's a fine line to damnation, but God let me in.
Dark, still at 2 to 6.
Yes!
Little scout.
Yes!
Stupid little scout.